Welcome to the Retreat Leaders Podcast, the show for visionary coaches, healers, wellness pros, and small business owners who aren't just here to host another feel-good getaway, but to build a profitable, impactful retreat business. I'm your host, Shannon Jamail, retreat strategist, business mentor, and owner of a 46-acre retreat center. I've hosted over 100 retreats around the world, and I've made every mistake so you don't have to. Each week, we'll dive into the mindset, marketing, money, business, and mechanics behind sold-out, profitable retreats. Plus, hear from expert guests who are walking the talk. Whether you're planning your first retreat or scaling your 100th, you're in the right place. Welcome to the show. All right, guys, welcome back or welcome to the Retreat Leaders Podcast. I'm so excited. I have an amazing guest today, and she has been so patient with me because I'm recording in our new studio in Austin, and she's our first virtual guest in this setup. And so we were working out some kinks, and she was patiently waiting. We'll welcome Debbie to the show.
Hi, glad to be here.
I'm so excited you're here. Before I tell everybody what our topic is, which I know is exactly the opposite of what I told you I was going to do, will you just tell everyone who you are, what you do, just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I get lots of wonderful titles. You know, I'm a spouse and then a mom of 9 adopted children, and I get to be called Lolly by some of my favorite people. I'm a grandma of 15. And in my free time, I run a nonprofit that is here in the Houston, Texas area as a CEO. And then I coach and train leaders. So I get this wonderful title, The Legacy Architect. And that is really helping leaders and entrepreneurs build what I call the architect of trust. And that's the leadership and operational structure that makes retreats respectable, scalable, and profitable. So I work with all kind of industry leaders to help them do just that in the businesses that they're in. And so I'm excited to be here with you guys and talk about how we can help you guys move your businesses along and get the profits. And not only that, but the connections that you need to be able to be successful for the long term.
Oh, I'm so excited. A grandma of 15. I've got
Yeah.
2, and I'm like, whoo, 15, how exciting. And I've never, ever heard, you're the second person, so I shouldn't say never. You're the second person I've heard be called Lolly. Is
Yes.
is that a like specific culture, or was it just like a
Okay, so
coincidence?
it's actually really funny. One of my sons married into a relationship with a girl that had a child, and before they got married, this little 7-year-old and I had a discussion as to what my grandma name would be. And so we went through this big long process and ultimately landed on that I would be Lolly and my husband would be Pops. And so you always go to Lollipop's house.
Oh my gosh,
Um,
stop it.
yeah.
Stop it.
So
Oh, I love this so much. I have a good friend of mine, Ruth, who listens to the podcast, and she's called
Mhm.
Lolly. And so that's the second time. And I just love that in that whole conversation. Okay, I'll refocus us. I know that what we're going to talk about today is exactly what you said, but
Mhm.
specifically trust leaks in a retreat business. And I was really enthralled by this because you said there's like 5 areas where the
Yeah.
trust breaks down for retreat leaders. Could you walk us through that?
Yeah. So, well, let's understand the kind of thought behind the architecture of trust. Okay, and the architecture of trust says that we all trust something, and what we trust actually shows up when the pressure rises. Okay, so if we take like a chair, we look at a chair and we go, "Oh, I think I can trust it to hold me," right? And
Yeah.
then we put pressure on the chair and the chair holds, and we know we can trust that chair. Okay. So in our businesses, as long as you and I show up 100%, we can trust ourselves. So we can trust our defaults. A lot of times are things like control, hustle, urgency, those types of things. And you know what? They work until they don't, right?
Mm.
And it runs us ragged a lot of times. So when we look at what we need to do from a retreat perspective, one of the things that we need to look at is what are our systems and our processes that we are using so we can put our trust in those things versus my need to control or my need to hustle or my urgency, because that wears us out. But the structures can definitely help us. And so we looked at like areas for you guys of marketing promises and boundaries and delivery and operations and follow up. These are all the critical systems and structures that you need in place so that you can breathe easy, look calm and confident, and know that you are, and be the wonderful people that you are to pull off the retreats that you need to pull off.
Okay, I love this. So I want to make sure I'm understanding you correctly. The 5 areas that you mentioned, you're saying that in order for us not to lose trust or for trust to leak out of these areas is to create specific systems within those 5 areas. Can you give us an example one?
Sure. So, like for instance, on your marketing promises, okay, are you doing it with clarity? What you are promoting, or is it a big catch net and then you're like over promising, and when they get there, you're like running yourself ragged to be able to pull all these things off, versus niching in and not just selling aspiration, but selling specific clarity of what you're doing and who you're doing it for and what are the promises, what are the deliverables, and you're making it very clear so that you can meet them, and then you know that it's going to meet the right clientele that you want there. And so I just think that's one easy way that sometimes we just put stuff on paper and try it, and we maybe set ourselves up for having to do too much then. And if we don't get that right, then what will happen is we will definitely lose the trust of the people that were there, but we'll also default into doing things that we have to pull it all together, that is so stressful for us.
And exhausting. So you're totally speaking my language, because one of the things that I'm super adamant about is marketing to a specific person, a specific avatar, a specific guest profile, whatever you want to call it, but being super specific, and then super specific on what the outcome's going to be. What is the end result? How are they going to be different at the end of the retreat? All of that, because you're exactly right. I am going to totally admit that when I first started hosting retreats, I didn't have these conversations, Debbie. And I thought I could be all things to all people. So when someone would say, well, will your retreat have this? Sure, I'll add that. Will retreat do this? Sure, we'll do that. And it is exhausting. It was not authentic because I was doing things that were not in my wheelhouse. It's not something I should be doing or teaching. And at the end of it all, I'm sure some of those guests felt that. They felt the inauthenticity of it. They felt the stress and pressure that I was under. And holy crud, I was exhausted at the end. And I see this happening all the time. So I'm really glad that you brought this up specifically as an example.
Yeah, so I like to kind of round it out. Like, if your promises are bigger than your structure, okay, you're borrowing trust that you haven't earned yet. Okay. And the worst thing that we can have is misfit guests who really shouldn't have been there in the first place. Right. And we're trying to please them. And really the ones that we wanted to like bring along with us, we're struggling to keep them because we're running ourselves ragged on working with the others. So,
yes, this is a tough one for some people to swallow, but I'm going to tell it to you just like Debbie here is, which is you are not for everybody. If you're listening to me right now and you're planning your retreat business, you're building your retreat business, or even any entrepreneurial service that you are going to provide, you are not for everyone. You have a very specific guest profile that is a perfect match for you, but not everyone is. And I know that's really hard for people to hear, Debbie. Do you find that you run into that wall with people that you work with where they're like, I can take money from anybody?
Well, I think we get when we operate that way, we really operate from a scarcity mindset. And when we have a scarcity mindset, it means we close ourselves off to being really, really good. And the funny thing is, the more specific we can get, the better our results are going to be. And we're going to find that niche that is ours in this big pool of retreat business, because we don't want to get everyone. So I was like, for the retreat people, if you can do this sentence, this retreat helps blank go from here to here, right? Those are pretty specific. And then add on this is not for you if, okay? And then you will weed out people in all of your pre-retreat stuff, and it'll feel, it's a real test of, can we trust the system? But it'll feel weird at first, and you may have to get a little bit of build up time, but it will pay for you in the long term. And it will save you, it'll save you decades on your life of stress.
It will. And it will save
Mhm.
you from disappointment from you personally disappointed, but also some of your guests will be
Mhm.
disappointed if you
Yeah.
are trying to be this person for all things. If anybody goes to any of my retreats that I list, that I host personally, you will see that it says very specifically, this is not for you if. I actually
Mhm.
use that language and I list who it's not for. I am not afraid to say, my retreats are for you if this, and my retreats are not for you if this. I want someone to look at my content, my landing page, whatever I'm posting, and either one of two things happen. They're immediately attracted and they're like, oh my gosh, she's speaking my language. Or they go, this is not for me. And I repel them. That's perfect. When you're trying to
Right.
be bland in all things to all people. And I love that you said it's a scarcity mindset, because I do think that's exactly where it's coming from. It's like, I
Mhm.
just need money. I just need spots filled. I just need it to sell, Shannon. No, you do not.
Yeah. Well, you could have it do that, but then you're going to have trouble with the next one. But, but
Good point.
the truth of the matter is that our authority and our authenticity comes through when we do just that, by setting those boundaries and, on kind of how we market. And it actually elevates your status in their eyes if they are coming to see you and do it, because they go, I know exactly what I'm getting, and I know
Hmm.
exactly where I'm going. And then you deliver on those promises, and you can have retreat attendees for years. And that's what you want. You don't want just the one time person to be there.
Hey guys, Shannon cutting in here real quick. Listen, the Retreat Industry Forum is happening May 14th through 17th in Denver, Colorado, and it's not your average feel-good conference. This is where bold retreat leaders, venue owners, industry pros, small business entrepreneurs come together to disrupt, challenge, and advance what's possible in our industry. You'll get cutting edge strategy, real world business tools, and high level conversations about profitability, innovation, and sustainability without the fluff or kumbaya. Join myself, my friend Erin, and Allison, along with other powerhouse leaders for 3 immersive days of connection, collaboration, and serious business growth, plus an exclusive VIP experience for those ready to go even deeper. Get all the details and grab your ticket now at retreatindustryforum.com. This isn't just another event, you guys. It's the movement that's reshaping the future of the retreat world. I love this. I'm going to give 2 examples of how this works. I once signed up for a retreat that, to me, I thought was clearly outlined what it was, what the outcome was going to be, and it felt like it was for me. I went. It did not meet that at all. And I mean, some things were very, very like plain. Like they said, we're going to go out on this boat and we're going to go do these specific things, and none of that happened. So some of them were obvious, but also the like not obvious things just did not happen. So anyway, will I ever recommend that retreat? No. Did I feel like I could give a good rating for that retreat? No. On the flip side, I remember contacting someone, because I do, by the way, those of you that are listening, I attend retreats too. I take my own medicine. If I feel like everybody should go on my retreats, I also attend retreats. But
Yeah.
I remember contacting someone about their retreat and asking questions about it. And I love that she said, you know what? I don't know that mine's a match for you, but let me give you some recommendations. And you know what that did, Debbie? Is that
Hmm.
when someone else was talking to me about something, I was like, you know what? This retreat wasn't a match for me, but I think it'd be a good match for you. Like it
Hmm.
because she said she wasn't a fit, it made me want to give her business for people who would be a fit. versus the other
Mhm.
one that was like just selling all the things and then not doing the things. I will never recommend them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because it gets it's a integrity that you feel like for her because she was so honest with you
Yeah.
that you could go, I can feel safe sending someone else there because she's gonna do what she says.
Yeah.
And that is what we all want because it's the thing that we can't pay for, right? Is people to do that for us. And so that's great that you're willing to do that for that lady because she made such a good impression on you.
Yeah, I love it. Do you have any other examples that you want to share?
Not in that area. We can go to the next one if you want
Sure.
to. It kind of
Let's
it
do it.
kind of bleeds over into that one, but it has to do with the boundaries and kind of an extension of what we were just talking about guest fit and this concept of taking anyone that pays, no screening really between after, can they afford it? If they can breathe, they can be here. And then no clear behavior expectations. Okay. We have to view the the things that we are creating, the retreat experience, is that it is a container. It's a what I like to call a safe space, or it should be, right? Okay, a safe space. And if we don't define it and how it's held, then people will bring their own rules. Okay.
Hmm.
And so what that might means is, like if they're you can take alcohol. If you don't want it to be an alcohol experience, you better define that up front, or you'll have it there before you know it. And then you're trying to deal with the negative that it's bringing versus focusing on it from the very beginning. So, some of the things that you might want to consider to help fix that, because we don't want a person hijacking your energy. You feel like you're managing adults instead of leading an experience, and the group feel vibe, like you said about your experience, was off and you couldn't fix it like mid retreat,
Yeah.
right? And so, some things that we might be able to do for that is, consider an application process or at least a clarity call for fit.
Yeah.
And be okay with doing what that other lady said with you is that I don't think you're a fit for this, right? And then are you communicating how we do things here? Confidentiality, respect, participation, time, all this good time, all these good things that you need. And perfect. And then you need permission for you to say no if the energy is wrong. Right.
Yes.
And I think, I even like in other industry type things, a lot of times when I'm screening someone, I might just say, hey, we're trying to figure out if this is a good fit for us. And you should be trying to figure out if we're a good fit for you. And I know that not all fits are going to be good, but maybe I can give you some other recommendations or whatever and things like that. And if it's great, it's going to be wonderful. But we
Yeah.
want to make sure that it is a value for all of us as we go through this process. And so I just think, we have to remember, put this phrase in your head, a full retreat with the wrong guest costs more than an empty spot with the right boundaries.
Amen.
Yeah.
Hallelujah. Say it again. I could not agree more. I love this part about conversation, communication, and boundaries. And I feel like that starts right from your landing page or
Mhm.
content, right? Right away, kind of setting the tone, expectations. And then I love the idea of clarity calls for people who, especially if you have very specific things for your retreat. Maybe it's just you just are very specific about what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. But in general, a clarity call is great because you can get a feel for that person's energy, the alignment between you and them, between their expectations of the retreat versus what you're going to deliver. I love all of that. And then I'm a big, big, big fan that you continue this and remind it at that opening circle or opening night or your first group setting expectations, whatever that looks like for you, however your retreat works, is you just remind people. So it shouldn't be a surprise, by the way. You don't all of a sudden say there's no alcohol allowed if you haven't said it all the way up there. I mean, I'll just be honest. If I'm a champagne girl and if I'm showing up to retreat and I'm thinking I can bring champagne and all of a sudden I'm told when I've already arrived that I couldn't, I'd be very, very not happy.
Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
you do need to have these things, they need to be told ahead of time and then you do a reminder. at that opening circle, that opening moment, whatever that looks like for you, and you remind them. And you also gently remind them about your space as far as what I think is important for retreats, which is this should be a safe space. People should be able to share their thoughts and feelings as long as they're not attackful, et cetera, and so forth. And it should stay in this space. One of my big things is we keep politics out of the space. I don't give a shit who you like or don't like. It doesn't come into my space, into my retreat space. That you can leave at home. And so just setting those boundaries, reminding them, and getting real crystal clear. I really feel like that sets the tone. And I've
Mhm.
seen it, Debbie, as I can tell you have too, where when it's not done and I mean, you're talking about conflicts that could just easily be avoided, and disappointment and issues and run-ins if you had just been super clear about your boundaries and communicated them.
Yeah. And so don't forget that saying, a full retreat with the wrong guest costs more than an empty spot with the right boundaries. And
Yes.
you can be okay with that and know that you're creating such a great experience that these people are going to pass it on.
Yeah.
And if your number's not as high as you want it to be right this second, don't worry. That will help you set the expectation for future ones, and it will bring people to you. And so what you're really working with there is that most of us, I always tell people that in communication, assumption is the worst form of communication. So if you're
Mm.
assuming that they would, oh, just get it, you're going to be wrong. And you're going to live to learn to regret that. And they're going to come, like you said, I'm a champagne girl. And if I thought I could assume that I could have that, then I'm going to be frustrated when I'm found out it's different. So we're just going, hey, what can we do to increase the confidence and trust level and avoid the issues that will stress us out and, potentially tank the retreat, and we don't want to do that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Did you want to
Mhm.
share either one more tip before we talk about like your book and your services?
Yeah, so I would say that let me see which one I like the best of these ones that we had. Yeah. I would say, one of the things that I want you to really consider, because I think this is so important, and it has to do with what we do with follow up and integration, like afterwards.
Mm.
Okay. Because they've had a wonderful experience with you, but a lot of times we maybe don't think about like, what happens when they go back. Okay. And our guests, may potentially feel like they were like cracked open and life change and all these things. And then all of a sudden they get back home and smack reality hits them and they're just kind of dropped. And, and they don't hear from you again potentially till you're offering another retreat. So
Mm.
this really will hurt your repeat business because we need to help them land softly back into their environments because the world's going to go at you, 100 miles an
Mhm.
hour. And we want them to ease back into that and to feel deeply loved and cared for from our experience and continuing on. And they go, oh, you really care for me and
Yeah.
not just while I'm at the retreat. So think about things like just about like follow up emails or follow up email sequence or a call or a thank you note or a simple reflection kind of next steps worksheet that they could do. Or maybe you have a Facebook group that they could be in, those types of things, because that is so powerful for getting the next invite too, right? And so a lot of times we're so tired after we have done the retreat because we've run around crazy because we didn't have these systems and structures in place, and we don't do those extra touches. I do a lot of work in the nonprofit world, and oftentimes we spend a lot of time trying to raise money, right? And when we get a gift, do you know that it's like the statistics, like 20 to 25% of the people never give again because they never are told thanks.
Mm.
And
Wow.
it's so simple, right? And so you will stand out if you go this extra mile. I mean, it's so powerful. 4 days after the retreat, if you had 10 people and you just texted them, each one, and said, I was thinking about you today. You came to mind and I was praying for you. I hope
Yeah.
everything's going well. That doesn't take much time, but it's intentional. And we
Yeah.
love it when people are intentional with us. And so that to me is like, the icing on top of the cake that you want to make sure that you do in your experience.
I love this. Everybody who knows me knows that my alumni, that's what I call my retreat guests who have attended with me, are sacred to me. They are so incredibly just precious. And so I have a Facebook group just for my alumni. I do mail outs just for my alumni. I
Mhm.
give birthday gifts for my alumni. They get special retreats that are only for alumni. And so I'm a big, big believer of just taking care of that relationship after you've formed it in the original
Mhm.
retreat. And I love even, I don't do this personally because my retreats, I don't consider them to be necessarily healing.
Mhm.
But it can be used for any retreat. So it could even be used for mine. But I especially love strong integration for any kind of, like you said, cracked wide open or a healing
Mhm.
modality to to really follow up in whether it's Zoom meetings or a group Zoom meeting or something, because you're right, when they get cracked open, and that sometimes happens on my retreats too, but and then they immediately go back to their chores and their job and their home life and the heaviness and the responsibilities again. Nobody's cooking them food anymore, like
Yeah.
laundry. So, all those things, it can actually really be a tiny bit devastating.
Mhm.
And so, just knowing that you're there and just that little reminder, it's almost like a system reminder that, hey, we're still here. Here's an
Mhm.
idea. Here's a tool. Here's something that you can do at home to bring with you some of the things that we did. So, I really love that. And I know there are a lot of hosts that are so good at that. And then I do think there are a lot of hosts who just forget about that part of it. And it really hit me when you talked about donating and then not getting a thank you. So I donate to two organizations, like it's monthly, it's just given. They're both to these horse organizations. But there's this one that I followed for a while, and every now and then they'd ask for donations for a horse that was in need, and I would donate. And I did it 5 times, and not one time did I get a thank you, not even an automated one. Nothing. Oh, the only
Aw.
reason why I knew it
Mhm.
happened is because it was deducted from my account. And I remember
Sure.
thinking, okay, I think I'm done. I'm just going to focus on these other two organizations who constantly tell me thank you for my monthly contribution. So that really hit me. And I can see how that relates to
Mhm.
any business, really, but
Mhm.
especially in the retreat industry. So thank you for bringing that up. That's a great analogy.
Yeah. And I would say, we've talked about a lot of things, and it can be so frustrating to listen to podcasts like me and hear people say, do this, do this, do this, do this.
Right.
What I always tell people is, this is a journey. So don't try to fix everything. Just think about where you had the biggest tension
Mm-hmm.
the last time you led a retreat, and find one thing there that you can do to create a system or a structure or a rhythm, and do that, and then do your next retreat and think about that again. Where was my biggest tension? And you will fix things over time without feeling like you're overwhelmed. And I love this kind of thought: the better trust that I can have, I get better reviews, easier marketing, and better experiences means lots more referrals and bookings. And that is what we want.
I love that. I love
Mhm.
that. And I couldn't agree more that we actually learn the most through our mistakes and through our actual
Mhm.
experiential learning. So I love that.
Mhm.
It can kind of keep it a little bit more simpler. Okay, if
Yeah.
somebody wanted to work with you, how would
Mhm.
they do that? And I think you even have a free gift for the listeners.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So you can find out about me and what the kind of coaching and different things that I do at thedebbieSimmons.com. And it has all of the social media handles. And then, as a gift to your listeners, I have my book, The Heart of Legacy. And it's about what it means to be focused, faithful, and fearless in what you do. And the whole center section is on application, about easy things that you can do to move in that direction. So that is a free gift. And where you get that is at the website, theheartoflegacy.com. And then we will get that out to you. Actually get a paper copy. So it's a wonderful tool to encourage you and to help you figure out what does it mean to take it to the next level and move from, just simply surviving to ultimately thriving in what you're doing.
I love it. All of those links will be in the show notes as well. So please go check it out, grab your free copy. Thank you so much for being on the show. I so appreciate you.
Yes, it was fun.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Retreat Leaders Podcast. If you love this episode, please make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your retreat besties. Want more support? Grab free resources at theretreatleadersplaybook.com. Until next time, lead boldly, serve deeply, and retreat profitably.